What up, guys? The Bench Buddies are back with my first MLB trade deadline predictions video for this year, and we'll recap after the trade deadline to see who got good deals and who got fleeced. But for this one, I'm recording this Friday night, a few days ahead of the trade deadline. And let's jump into our trade deadline. And the first candidate I have here is none other than Justin Verlander. And Verlander has been hot as of recently. His talks have been heating up. And those teams there, Rangers, maybe even going back to the Astros and the Reds, a surprise team, the Reds. I think Verlander at the end of the day is going to get shipped out of New York. It just makes too much sense to not get rid of him. He's 40 years old. He's still putting up solid numbers. And if you can get rid of him at this elite level and get a few decent prospects back, it's definitely worth it for the Mets. I mean, they spend a lot of money. There's always next year for that to happen. And it just seems like there's something missing for this Mets team. And we'll jump into Max Scherzer, same boat. Scherzer obviously has a bigger contract. He's got a few more years on the deal. But what are the Mets going to do here? What do they really want to do, Scherzer and Verlander? That's the big question. I mean, even I'll throw in the Rays too, another team that could get Scherzer and still the Astros and Reds. I mean, what if they pulled off a blockbuster, Scherzer and Verlander, the Astros? Seems like that's something they would do. I mean, if you can see his stats, it's not the best Max Scherzer has been in the past, but it's still Max Scherzer. He turns it on normally in August and September, and anyone would love to have his arm. Marcus Stroman has put together a career year for the Cubs, 126 innings pitched, 3.5 ERA. Any team would love that skill set in a 22-game start. The Astros yet again, Rays especially, I think could benefit from Stroman. Stroman has been really good and very consistent, and that's something the Rays need right now. The Diamondbacks too. They, have Gallen. Merrill Kelly's expected back soon, and after that, Tommy Henry's been decent, but you don't really have too much reliability there. And if you're in a, best of 5, best of 7, you're going to need at least decent third that's going to carry. And I think Stroman, puts the Diamondbacks in that category. Same thing for the Diamondbacks for Jordan Montgomery. If they miss out on Stroman, you got to go for Montgomery. An elite lefty this year. He's looked great in St. Louis. St. Louis traded Bader for Montgomery last year at the deadline, and it was an excellent trade last year. But this year, he hasn't got much help. His stats personally have been really good. But, Astros and Rays, teams that need pitching, you're going to see a lot of that for these pitchers. Montgomery more than likely will be dealt because the Cardinals will be sellers. Blake Snell is the big question mark, I think, right now, out of all the players you've seen. Could the Padres be sellers? And if they are, will they get rid of Blake Snell? Snell has been probably a top 5 pitcher in baseball this year. In 21 games started, 2.6 ERA, 147 strikeouts, and only 114 innings pitched. Ridiculous numbers so far. I think the Reds, his numbers would probably go up just a little bit just because of Great American Ballpark and how it's not a pitcher's park. Rays, of course, would benefit from that. And, the Rays always get the best out of their pitchers, so maybe Snell becomes better. And then would the Padres trade with their division rival, the Dodgers? I think it could be possible. Just to say if the Padres are officially out of it, that's something they might look into. Then my Tigers, more than likely, are going to listen to calls on Eduardo Rodriguez, but it's not a for sure thing. He's a veteran left-handed pitcher putting up career numbers this year in only 15 starts. And when he's been on the mound, the Tigers have a chance to win, and that says a lot this year. In only 88 innings pitched, 91 strikeouts, a whip of 1. The Rangers would benefit from his services, especially. I think the Rangers need that veteran guy to lead them. They brought in DeGrom, but look how that turned out. He got hurt. He's done for a while. The O's, I think that could be an interesting piece. Same thing, young pitchers, and they don't really have that veteran leadership other than Kyle Gibson. Then the Phillies, I think, could be a dark horse team to go get him. I think, with Nola and Wheeler, and then you bring in Eduardo, that'd be a solid number 3 in the postseason. And Phillies, we're just a few games away from a World Series championship, and could this be the move to go get him? And then the other Tiger starter that's on the market is Michael Lorenzen, and this would be a cheaper way of getting a starting pitcher, and that's why I have the Diamondbacks, Reds, and Phillies on this list. Just because I think if they all miss out on that big name pitcher, Stroman or Snell, if he's available, Rodriguez, Verlander, I think these 3 teams are the most likely to get a veteran with putting up solid numbers on, so-so team. Lorenzen, was the All-Star for the Tigers this year, and he's, been lights out since pretty much the middle of June, putting up a 3.5 ERA and having a career year. And then you have Aaron Savell for the Cleveland Guardians, and I think he's another candidate for the Diamondbacks as well. They just need pitching. They need a starter. They got to get one, I think, at the deadline. The Giants, I like them too. If they're really going to try to go and make a push, I think this could be a low-end budget, starter for them. And you got 2.5 ERA. I know it's only 71 innings pitched, but in the small sample size that we've seen, he has been pretty good for these Guardians. And why not, trade him, get as most as you can out of him. Rich Hill seems like he's on the list every year, the veteran, over 40 years old. And, it's not the best numbers, but veteran leadership, he could be your fifth guy or long relief guy. He's perfectly comfortable with either. And I think those teams, playoff teams, pretty much the NL West is more than likely going to get him. Now we're onto the relievers, as Josh Hader is the elite reliever on the market if the Padres decide to sell. And if you put him in Cincinnati, I think that pen just gets the best 1-2 punch possibly in baseball this year. Alexis Diaz and Josh Hader. I don't know who would work the ninth just because of how good both those guys are, but that would be a scary sight. Bring in Hader to Philly and have Kimbrel, pretty solid. Another 8-9 that could be top in the league. And then the Diamondbacks bring in an elite closer. I think that would immediately boost probably their win total by at least 2 or 3 games just because of the Diamondbacks' struggles in the pen this year. But maybe Jordan Hicks is a guy for a few other teams. Maybe the Phillies miss out on Hader and they go for Hicks. Rangers and Rays, I think, they could go for Hicks. He's not putting up the best numbers, but he has performed well as of late, especially in July. And the Cardinals are more than likely going to sell. Even Arenado's on the market, which is crazy to think about after what they did a few years ago. And then you have the Nationals. Kyle Finnegan is more than likely their best pitcher on the market. And the Rays, Phillies, Dodgers, teams that need bullpen help are going to be looking and calling the Nationals line. He's been having a good year for the Nationals, one of the few bright spots they've had for pitching. Scott Barlow is another name that more than likely will be on the move for the Royals. The Royals don't have anything to play for. His ERA is a little inflated there, but he has been pretty good for a few years, and I think it's worth the risk for a prospect or two to go get a lefty pitcher. Now we're on to the hitters, and Cody Bellinger is the best hitter on the market right now. And if you would have told me that 2 years ago, I would have called you crazy just because of how bad he's been in the recent years. Ever since his MVP season, he slowly went downhill, but he's found something new, changed his stance in Chicago. And, he could be on the market, but these Cubs, we don't know yet if they are for sure buying or selling. And if they are selling, Bellinger will be the best guy on the market. Miami could use a bat. Texas, especially, we add another lefty bat, add some pop. That'd be a very dangerous lineup with Simeon, Garcia, and Seager. I think Bellinger could slide right in there. And, you'd have to pitch to at least 3 of those 4 guys. And then the Mariners, they're really going to be the ones that determine this deadline. Are they going to sell a lot? They have a lot of young guys, a lot of prospects they could give up to buy, or are they going to sell, get rid of their veterans, and possibly get even younger? Tim Anderson, a name that you probably wouldn't have expected to see on this list at the beginning of the year. And I think the stats speak for themselves. It's worth the risk at this point for all of these teams. Why not change the location, try something new, and go from there? And, maybe the Angels are going to go in for it. They just got Giolito and Lopez. Why not go all in and get Tim Anderson to bolster that shortstop position? Then we have Jeimer Candelario. His career in Detroit, he pretty much wasn't existent. And then now he goes to the Nationals on a 1-year deal. And he just becomes a stud. He's hit 16 home runs, 52 RBIs, and pretty much been the consistent offense for the Washington Nationals. The Brewers love his talents at third base, especially the Twins. I think that's the position they need to get, is a third baseman. And then the Phillies, with Bohm, but they could have him DH. Bohm could play a little outfield first. Doesn't really matter. I think just adding another hitter to that lineup would be good for those Phils. And then from the Cardinals, you have Paul Dejong. And I think he could be another one on the move for possibly the NL West. The Dodgers or Giants, Dodgers especially need a shortstop. He fits this bill perfectly. And he's been putting up okay numbers in 78 games. He was hurt a little bit. But if you can get probably 260 average for him when you trade for him. I think that's a win for your team. He could be a solid 7, 8, 9 hitter. Lane Thomas, another player for the Nationals that's been on the move. And just like Candy, Lane Thomas has been the only offense for the Nationals. You can see there with the 3.4 WAR, he's doing all he can for this team. And that's why I expect him to be on the move. Yankees could possibly go get him, an outfielder. The Yankees haven't had consistent outfielder, but Judge was activated tonight. Brewers, it seems like they don't have enough hitting when they get to the postseason. This could be a good ad for them. And same with the Mariners. We don't know what they're doing, but if they're buying, Lane Thomas is a guy they need to get. Elias Diaz, a catcher for the Rockies, All-Star Game MVP this year, and he came out of nowhere. And, you see those three teams there. All need catchers, and if the Padres are buying, I think they're a team that could go get him. Him and Gary Sanchez would fight for duties behind the plate. 10 home runs, 270 average, 90 games. You got to like what you're seeing here, and I think it's worth a few prospects to go get a good catcher. Randall Grichuk for the Rockies as well. This is probably cash and a low prospect to go get Grichuk right now. More of a veteran bat in the lineup, and he's been playing pretty well in 61 games, hitting over 300. The power used to be there. It's not the same as it used to be, but if he's getting on base, doing his thing, then I think it's a good addition for the bottom of your lineup. And then Yan Gomes, another catcher, and if the Cubs are selling, look for Miami, Tampa, and the Yankees to be involved as they need a veteran catcher. Miami has Jacob Stallings, and Nick Fortes, but how far will that get them? Yankees, it seems like they always had a catcher at the deadline, and the Rays, it seems like they always miss out on a catcher at the deadline. So I always have these, at least the Yankees and Rays, in there for a catcher. And Gomes has been playing pretty good, is at his age, still catching behind the plate. He's putting up solid numbers. But that's going to be it for the video today. Make sure you guys come back in a week to see what I grade all the trades that happen at the deadline. But until the next time, the Bench Buddies are out.